So this was a thing. So this actually happened. I am the Kaiju no Kami, and this is my Quickie review of the 2002 Twilight Zone series.
Dimension not only of sight and sound.
The Twilight Zone 2002 is the third series from the Twilight Zone series. Basically, the second time the series was remade. This one only lasted a season long, which was only 43 episodes. Well, I say only 43 episodes, but wow, 43 episodes was kind of a lot. And I can see why this only lasted one season. It was awful. I know I said the 80s series was not very good, that a lot of the episodes were really more misses than hits, but this was just horrifying. Even the good episodes weren't really all that good. I don't even know really where to begin. First, I guess I should say that Forrest Whitaker was the host, and I will say it was nice that he actually was on screen for the majority of the show. More often than not, he would actually show up at the beginning of an episode and then at the end of the episode, like Rod Serling would often do in the old series, compared to the 80s series where it was pretty much just narration that would sometimes be there, sometimes not be there. First, I was like, oh my god, we have the host coming on screen. This is great. But then when things went on, it got worse because, one, there were times where Forrest Whitaker looked like he was out of breath, as if he was running to get to the camera across the Twilight Zone just so he could give his little speech at the beginning or at the end. So such and such is about to experience such and such, because he's about to enter the world of the Twilight Zone. Or sometimes, he's about to enter the world of the Zone. It also didn't help that he felt like he was just reading his script rather than actually trying to act the script. So there was that too. Completely miscast, completely poorly written. He was not the right guy for this job. Let's get to the episodes themselves. I don't have an episode description on a physical DVD set to show you, so I'm going to have to use my phone. The premiere was an episode called Evergreen about this girl and her family who moved to this town because this girl's rebellious, so the parents are trying to do whatever they can to get her to act with the system and all this stuff. Not a bad premiere. One Night at Mercy about death, quitting was pretty decent. Shades of Guilt about this white guy who drives off leaving a black man to die, feels guilty about it, and then he starts getting the reverse Michael Jackson disease. That one was a really well done episode for what this show is. Dream Lover features the guy from Heroes and Age of the Shield, who is this comic writer artist who ends up imagining this girl that he falls in love with. Cradle of Darkness is the whole frickin' stupid ass, if you could go back in time to kill baby Hitler, would ya? Horrible episode. Night Route, this girl nearly gets hit by a car and starts seeing weird things. Ugh. Time Lapse was another pretty solid episode. Features this hospital worker who ends up blacking out, and when he wakes up, he's in different places. He thinks he's going to kill the president's daughter. Dead Man's Eyes, which was another remake of Dead Man's Shoes that was remade into Dead Woman's Shoes in the 80s. This one, a lady uses her husband's glasses to start seeing what happened to her husband. Pool Guy we had was this guy who, I don't even remember. It was a horrible episode. Azoth the Avenger is a friend of mine. Oh, God. This one has Patrick Warburton playing a Conan-like character who's helping this kid who has to deal with an abusive father, and the whole episode itself was just horrifying. It was boring. It was probably the worst episode of the series. The Lineman was this two-parter. For some reason, it was an hour-long episode about a guy who nearly gets electrocuted and can now hear people's thoughts. Harsh Mistress was about this guitarist who finds a guitar that makes him play good. Not bad. Upgrade was basically this wife has problems with her family and they start getting upgraded and everything starts changing to how she wants it to be. To Protect and Serve was a police officer who saves a hooker and he starts getting phone calls from a pimp that he had to kill to save the hooker. Chosen was not bad, which features a guy who is greeted by these aliens, supposedly, this religious people that are trying to recruit him. Sensuous Cindy was a virtual reality sex program thing. Ugh. Hunted was awful, which featured these people being hunted by monsters, but there's a twist. That's another thing that was bad about this series. Usually the plot twist you could tell coming a mile away. Like an episode would start and in the first 2 minutes you could already figure out how the plot twist was going to be. There was only one episode in the entire series I didn't try to figure out the plot twist within the first 2 minutes because I was too busy enjoying the episode itself than to be thinking about it. Most of the time I'm there like, okay, this is boring, let's see. Oh, so that's going to happen. And then it would happen like, yeah, okay. Mr. Motivation was basically a toy doll, is pushing this guy to go off on his boss. Just think of him as like Tucky Tina, Sanctuary, this agent, and this other agent lady, and finding themselves in this world where they're trapped with only a house and a garden. That one was kind of interesting, but again, you saw the twist coming along. Future Trade was basically Upgrade, but with a guy who's replacing himself instead of a woman. Found and Lost. What was this one about? Oh, guy who learns about his ex-girlfriend being dead and all this stuff, and he tries to fix time and everything, whatever. Gabe's story was kind of interesting because Christopher Titus plays this guy who was down on his luck all the time, but then it turns out after he gets into a car accident, he gets injured, and then he can suddenly see that there's some guy in an orange jumpsuit that's always destroying things of his property, and he's getting the blame for it because no one else can see him. That was a really interesting one. Last lap about this race car driver who's dying from cancer. The Path was basically a redone version of Nick of Time, where this woman meets this guy who's psychic, and she starts relying on him to tell her what's going to happen in her life. Fair Warning featured an episode where this guy told this woman, I'm going to kill you, and when they go to visit the guy, he has no idea what she's talking about. He's never met her before. That was another one that had potential, but squandered all with a rushed final act that made no sense and was just terrible. Another Life was an interesting episode. It was a social commentary about a hip-hop artist who's successful, but then he starts having visions of another life where he's being questioned by police and beaten by police for a murder he claims he did not commit. Rewind was basically a kind of stopwatch where a guy gets a tape recorder that lets him rewind time, and he starts gambling with it because he's a compulsive gambler. Tagged is this gang member, kills this artist, and then the guy's work on this wall starts showing who the killer was. Into the Light was a social commentary on Columbine with this teacher that starts seeing people who are going to die. You can kind of figure out where that's going to go. It's Still a Good Life was a sequel to It's a Good Life, it wasn't a bad episode, but I only care about it because it has the characters from the old episode, It's a Good Life, returning in this one. Monsters Are on Maple Street was another terrible remake that completely tried to update the story and put it in a post 9/11 America. But unlike the original where the neighborhood felt like they all got together, these people in this show, they don't like each other, they don't want to be around each other. So when they start mistrusting each other, it doesn't work. Memphis was basically like Back There from the old series, where this black guy who's dying of cancer goes back in time. He ends up finding himself that he needs to save Martin Luther King. How Much Do You Love Your Kid was a play on reality TV shows about a TV show that kidnaps a woman's kid, and she has to go through clues to find the kid. That one was really, really good because it was so ridiculous and out there. The Placebo Effect was about Jeffrey Combs playing this hypochondriac who ends up getting a disease because he read about it in a book because his imagination starts giving him diseases that should not exist. Code Fusion is another pretty solid episode, a psychological one that has a scientist that is sent to the Arctic to help work on this program called Gemini, and he finds that everyone's paranoid. Pharaoh's Curse, about magicians. Started out kind of cool, but then just became generic and predictable. Collection, which had Jessica Simpson in it. Ugh. Horrible episode about this babysitting this girl with this doll collection that comes to life. Woo. There was only one part in there that was funny when she's like, this isn't a horror movie. Eye of the Beholder was a remake of the classic Sterling episode, which was one of his best episodes, and it's one of the worst episodes in this series because they tried to... I don't even know exactly what they tried to do. It's like they wanted to take Sterling's original script and repeat the lines, but they updated the lines, which also gave away the plot twist in the first 2 minutes of the episode. Also, you could tell these lines were not written for these actors because they're just saying their lines, they're not acting them. Developing about this lady whose husband died and she goes through all this stuff. Ugh. The Execution's Great Finch was the one I talked about that actually did not have me going, oh my god, I think this is going to happen, this is going to happen. No, I was engaged the entire episode. It wasn't exactly great, but it was easily the best episode of the series. Homecoming, which was a father who's in the military when MIA just suddenly shows up at his home. You can pretty much figure out what's going to happen in that one. Sunrise was these 5 students unleash a Mayan curse that blacks out the sun, and they decide they have to sacrifice one of them to bring the sun back. And then finally an episode called Burned, about this unlikable apartment owner who has a complex burned down and ends up killing some kids, and then we're supposed to feel sorry for him or something. I don't know. The kids start haunting him because of their deaths, but I don't really understand what this episode is supposed to do. There's no way this character can be redeemed, so I don't understand the point of it. It was a horrible episode, one of the worst of the series, and that was essentially the series finale. Not the best one to go out on for your series. As I said at the beginning, there's a reason this series was not renewed for a second season. It was awful, and now suddenly the 80s series looks like a masterpiece compared to it. Have you seen the 2002 Twilight Zone series? If so, what is your favorite episode? What is your least favorite episode? Did you avoid this one like a plague? Did you watch one episode like, nope, this one is not for me? Let me know in the comments. Click like, click subscribe, click the bell notification, click whatever else YouTube has you clicking on to support me. You can support me on Patreon at Kaijun Okami, Twitter Kaijun Okami, Instagram Kaijun Okami, Facebook Kaijun Okami, and my website at creativitybydesignllc.com. Until next time, bye.